S.E. Hinton's 1967 novel The Outsiders was a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, but in order to understand and explore its themes and why the book was so great, we're gonna have to go back. All the way back. At the dawn of time, aka 1948, a woman named Susan Hinton was born. If this name sounds familiar, this is because that's just famous author S.E. Hinton, just without all the initials. As a child, Susan wrote stories and literature, and many deem her magnum opus to be Big David, Little David, not The Blindsiders. As a high schooler, Hinton got a D in creative writing, so she said, "Oh, I'll show you. You'll all regret this," and then she wrote The Outsiders, an infamous book known for popularizing and introducing the young adult genre of literature to the modern world, and is also very well known for having the most trashed-on protagonist of all time. Speaking of protagonists, The Insider's protagonist is a 14-year-old boy named Ponyboy. That is his actual name. And Ponyboy's a smart kid. He gets good grades, but for some reason, he just can't use his brain. This is actually where Hinton creates the idea known as common sense, and she was in fact the author who inspired Thomas Paine to create his famous cooking brochure, In Spite of the King. But Ponyboy walks home, and then fantasizes about Paul Newman building his Legos, and then he's just brutally beaten to a pulp. But then his gang, the Greasers, notoriously feared for greasing their hair and then singing with John Travolta, save him, and then we're introduced to the gang of Greasers. You got Soda Pop. That's his birth name. Then you got Two-Bit Matthews, who's a very funny guy. There's Steve. Nobody likes him. Derry, who's strong and doesn't understand Ponyboy. Oh, the angst. There's Dallas, who plays quarterback for the Cowboys, and Gianni, but only four of those guys actually impact the story. But why is this book so good and thoughtful? The characters. Without a doubt, the character writing in this book and development is amazing. Although the pacing is fast, it is something you can adjust to. And every character is their own individual you can tell apart from, and all of them are fleshed out to some extent. Except for Steve, because who invited him? Nobody likes him. There's no information. Like, Tom Cruise played one. But that's what makes this book worth reading. The relationships that these characters have and their dynamics and banter with one another. And Ponyboy's personal insight into things that only help develop himself and other characters even further. This book wouldn't work without these characters because at the end of the day, characters are the foundation of an enjoyable story, and C. Hilton Hotel executes this perfectly. By no means is the Cave book perfect. It has many issues when it comes to pacing and chapters dragging, but it is by far a classic and will go down as one of the most influential books in history. Right next to Twilight. But there are many themes that this book explores. Themes such as education, society and class, loyalty and love, violence and isolation, personal choices, and the friends we made along the way. But luckily for the introverts, C. Hilton presented the book in such a way that the themes presented felt seamless and not shoved down the reader's throat like so many other books do. Books such as The Giver, Divergent, Hatchet, and Ender's Game could not figure out the ancient technology that Susan gave future authors that other books took. Books like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Holes, To Kill a Mockingbird. At the very least, some books caught on. But what is the purpose of this video? The Klondikes and how it presents its themes. Oh look, it's the title of the video. The Impractical Jokers, like many books, has a myriad of themes, but the way that this book presents its themes is presented in such a smooth and slick way that it almost feels like there's really no message behind the book. Almost like the writers write stories because they like writing stories and not always to send a message, but I am getting sidetracked. Let's go to the serious part of the video, the themes of the book. Let's start off with the biggest theme in the entire book, society and class. The lowlifes bring up society and class as its first theme and right off the bat from the first chapter, and it is continued and fleshed out as we see more of the socials. But the issues with this theme is that Hinton answers the question to her own theme in the first 3 chapters. That question being, how do people in different classes differ from one another? The answer being, people are the same no matter what. We hold similar values, we have similar attitudes, we think the same things. People are people, and having more money and power doesn't change the human mind and how it works, but regardless of our social class, we are all very, very flawed. But by answering this question, S.E. Hotel gets rid of the purpose of retaining this theme for the remainder of the book, and unlike her protagonist, uses her brain and stages a significant event to change the tone and setting of the book and brings up more problems for her characters and themes. But how does she transition the theme throughout the book? She transitions the theme by simply shifting her focus from one character to another. She's able to simply hide the theme which we were set on exploring. She very faintly touches and explores love at the beginning of the book. She explores it through the character Cherry Valance, who has a semi-abusive boyfriend and falls in love with very flawed people. But not even 2 chapters later, Ponyboy falls asleep and then is yelled at for worrying his brother, his only real parental figure. His family stands for loyalty and love, and Derry, his brother, has a hard time expressing his pride and love for Ponyboy and to Ponyboy. It just seems like he doesn't understand him, so then Ponyboy runs away and Johnny, and here's where we shift focus again. Now shifting focus to Johnny and Ponyboy, the entire character of Johnny is simply an exploration and light study of how the effects of violence can actually have a very long-lasting effect on someone. A quick backstory to Johnny: his parents beat on him, he was nearly beaten to death by Socias, and soon after running with Ponyboy, he kills a Soc in self-defense. Johnny is very disturbed and quiet, and as Ponyboy reads out many times, he's like a sad old dog. But all throughout Johnny's life, all he's ever gotten to see was violence, and that's why the word "stay gold" meant so much to him, and that's why his death is that much more impactful. But did you see what I just did there? Like Hinton, I just shifted focus from theme to character. By having a character be a symbol for a theme, she's able to present the themes in an honest and very hands-off way. The main character, Ponyboy, is actually a large symbol of loyalty. Throughout the book, he speaks about how he favors soda rather than dairy, and is relatively consistent with that thought, but as the book progresses, his loyalty switches from his brother to Johnny to the Greasers and then back to Johnny and then to himself, and in a way, when Ponyboy is constantly babbling about what he is loyal to, what he cares about, he's more consistent with his own personal indecisiveness more than who he feels loyal to. And all of his thoughts play into the theme, and it feels like a big march for Ponyboy when he and the gang have a battle with the Socias. And in review, it really does feel like the largest present theme for the book, since we follow Ponyboy throughout the entire duration of the book. Now, there are many themes in this book which characters are symbols for, but I feel as if I've minorly covered the major ones. And S.E. Hinton's focus on her characters and having each of them be a minor study on a different part of human nature is one of the most well-executed presentations of messages and themes in a book, and without a doubt will remain as that for years to come.
That place and time so